And we keep bringing more adventures here at the Agile Testing Days Conference 2024, reporting from Potsdam, Germany. And I have another friend that actually I have been wanting to meet and talk to for a while now. The world famous, super awesome amigo Richard Bradshaw.
Hello.
I'm sure I butchered it.
It was good, close enough. If I try and say your name, how do you say it? Leandro properly?
I think you did it really
Yeah,
well.
okay, nice.
Uh,
Hi, everyone.
Totally humiliated me, but Richard Bradshaw was better.
That's good. Yeah,
Okay.
that's good. Nice English accent.
Did I? I didn't even try. So welcome, amigo. How are you?
I am doing really good, mate. Yeah, really good. All my sessions are complete. I now get to enjoy the conference. There's all the awesome people here that I don't get to see all the time.
Relaxation now.
Yeah, relaxation, commitment free. It's nice.
Just enjoying a lot of being able to talk to other speakers.
Yeah, a lot of networking with speakers, catching up with friends. Been talking to some of the sponsors as well. Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, it's part of the good times and things that you can have here at conferences. And well, now to get a little bit into the beef of it, amigo Richard, would you mind, for the people that do not know you,
Sure.
who are you? What do you do? Have you done?
Yep.
What makes you special?
So my name's Richard Bradshaw. I have been in quality/testing for, I think this is my 16th year. Spent the first 5 of them not knowing that community or conferences or books or even a thing. Just learning from a manager. Discovered community, got into public speaking. Started doing a lot of teaching. Started doing keynotes, and kind of just made a name for myself through blogging and teaching and content. Had lots of different jobs, and at the moment right now I am a senior architect in quality engineering.
Sounds very pompous.
Yeah. So back hands-on testing after a few years running more things like testing conferences, communities. But yeah, now back hands-on on a software team, really enjoying it.
Yeah, it seems like you are kind of getting your toes tipping in on every possible pond that you can.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of challenges in life recently, and now I'm starting to feel a bit more confident again with my identity of who I am in the community. Feeling really confident again about some of my knowledge and my specialities, and feeling ready now to start, producing more content again, teaching, trainings, things like this, and yeah, just generally feeling in a much better place.
Wow, sounds. My interpretation sounds like, were you having like an imposter syndrome moment, or?
Yeah, probably. We just heard a great keynote from Jenna talking about identity, and for people who know me, my previous role was kind of a big part of my identity, and to have that, for that to come to an end, I kind of wanted to find who I was again, and a lot of other life changes kind of left me in this place of needing to work out what I want to do, who I am, and I've been on that journey for a year now, and now I'm finding, I think I do know who I am. I know the bits that I enjoy from being active in conferences, like stuff like this. I want to be doing this as well. I love interviewing people. I love teaching.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, and I really love teaching, and I think it's that. I want to get back into that space again and do that in the wider community, alongside now having a job back in the industry, which obviously fuels the insights, the learnings, the challenges that people watching this are actually facing. I'm back in the fire now. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's nice.
It's interesting, and it's something that I can relate, because being away for a while, like I'm not touching Kubernetes and not touching and breaking AWS environments, all that stuff that for a while, like being away, I don't know if you experience this, like suddenly coming back, like, oh, things have changed quite a bit. And
I had an absolute massive imposter syndrome with TypeScript and Playwright.
TypeScript as well. You chose a very
So this, quite funny. It actually ties nicely into why I'm here. So I gave a tutorial, but I deliberately chose to give the tutorial in TypeScript a year ago, not knowing any TypeScript. So the topic of the training was how to do more targeted automated tests. But to do that, I needed a modern app which has a lot of layers we can test on, which most at the moment are JavaScript, TypeScript based frameworks. So I gave myself the challenge of having to learn. So I built a full application in Next.js. I then added visual testing, UI testing, component testing, contract testing, API testing, and unit testing.
All that in
the same repo. The workshop was more about identifying where a test should go.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the code base has all those examples
But you
in.
build everything.
I built
for the code
everything.
base.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I did cheat though.
I am guessing how, but we'll get into
Yeah.
that in a moment. Well, I think lately we all do that. So some GPT
Yeah.
help or some Copilot or whatever. There are
Oh, this was
so many.
Cursor.
Cursor.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another one that I
Yeah. Highly recommend. If you ask the right question, works.
yeah. That's another well, focus squirrel. Okay, sorry. That happens often.
Oh, new testing tool. Oh, sorry.
No, and Cursor has been something that I have heard here, there.
Yeah.
I barely started playing with it, but yeah, every time that I get out of the conference, like, boy, I need to kind of like really dig that. I'll have some time soon, but I look forward to that focus again. Richard, but the tutorial that you presented a few days ago, was that same one that you're talking about? Or?
Yeah. So the tutorial was called Targeted Automated Testing. So the main like guts of the tutorial was, I still see a lot of teams heavily relying on end-to-end UI automation.
Oh.
So we've started to see, people are doing that, and they've started to bring API testing into the mix as well, which is great. But I'm starting to see the same patterns now, where we used to do too much on the UI, now we're doing too much on the API, and I wanted to share the way I view a system and how I break it down into little subsystems and how I model it, so that I can go, right, what are we trying to test? I don't know, we're trying to test the login flow. Well, how does login work? And I talk about the golden thread. Like, when you click login, what actually happens up and down your system before you get to the logged in
The next page, yeah.
And if you know what happens, you know how to spot the risks that might cause that flow to break. And then you can automate that risk targeted to the lowest layer that your testability allows. So what I mean by that is the lowest, it should be a unit test, but are you in a context that allows unit testing?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not, you'll go to the next layer in the flow, which might be the API. Do you have API tooling? Yes, we do. Automate it there. But so the goal is that we end up with a collage, a collection of or little pieces of lots of automated testing, that when you all work together, we satisfy that end-to-end flow. But now we've got small, targeted, atomic tests that when they fail, we know what's failed. When a big end-to-end API test or UI test fails, it could be all those things. So now we're now targeted. The feedback's quicker, the execution's quicker, the investigation time's quicker, and the fixing is quicker. And usually we only talk about execution. So for me, this approach, it was more teaching people how to break it down, how to model it, and then make them aware of the different types of testing you can do. Whether you can do that or not depends on your context.
Mm-hmm.
But not knowing how your system works leads you to treat it like a big black box. Put data in, get data out.
Yeah.
If you know how it works, you got more options.
This is super interesting because I'm a proponent, and you're in another perspective talking about the automation pyramid and where to do, what to do. But this is genius because I always thought of the pyramid like a separated, like floors, tiers. But you're putting this on a big picture where everything matters and it's interconnected. Don't avoid, I like to call it the Aztec sacrifice pyramid. Blah. Don't avoid, there are some sacrifices, lots of front-end UI, but I'm mind blown on the part like, the diagnosis and having some of the pieces. You won't release just doing unit tests because you can do almost all the coverage there.
So if anyone's watching this who knows me, you probably realize that when I hear the word pyramid, like I have a reaction, right? So the automation pyramid, automation triangles, as I call them, because they're not 3D. But like it's a model, right? We all know models. Some are useful, some are not, right? But the problem I have with it is people use the pyramid as a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
The pyramid is a heuristic. The pyramid is usually the result you end up with if you do testing really well. But the pyramid as a model lacks how to do that, how to go about doing that, and it lacks the context. So if you're in a context in an app where you can only do UI testing, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but maybe it is because
sometimes it is.
Everything else is third party, for example, right? So that's all you can do. So now your pyramid looks like a T. But are you doing a bad job?
It's the only job you can do. So
But if you use the pyramid as a strategy, you're doing a bad job.
yeah,
So I don't mind the model, but I'd rather go down this critical thinking route, model it yourself, do the best you can do with the testability that you have, and whatever your result is, that becomes your heuristic to go forward now. Do we actually like the shape of our pyramid, our triangle, or actually do we want to improve it? And if we can, what's the strategy, and what's the impact going to be of doing that, changing that strategy? So again, I like them. I don't dislike the model, but I think there's better ways of doing it now. I think it's kind of there's so many more layers that we can test in now, and people have updated the pyramids, to have more layers in, and you see pyramids with percentages on them and stuff like this.
I
They're
have
not.
never seen that.
Oh,
Those teams do that.
there's the ones that say you should have 50% of your tests a unit, 10% of this, and again, it's all a model, but
I have always received those questions when I present the pyramid, and it's like, what percentage should I do on each one?
Yeah.
I'm like,
So the thing that I love to talk about, and it's the word that you're not allowed to mention at testing conferences, it's the word risk.
da, da,
Da,
da.
da, da. It's like, what are the risks and how are you trying to mitigate them?
Yeah,
That's the key thing for me. It's like, what the risks are, map them to a model, which is what I was teaching in my tutorial, and then try and squash them and mitigate them in as smaller test as possible. Because also, the smaller the test, the smaller the environment you need to spin up, the smaller the amount of data you need to make. Everything
the
becomes smaller.
diagnosis is almost
Exactly.
right on point,
And I think that for me is like the direction I really want to see people going. And it's not about percentages. It's about doing the best possible job you can in a context. But that means you need skills and techniques. And that's what the class was about. It was giving them the techniques. I wanted to get them to writing some tests, but we kind of ran out of time. But they got the technique. I gave them a visual way of modeling a system, modeling the golden thread, and then mapping risks to that. And those risks become tests. And then you start to see that you've mitigated it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever number of tests. And then you can then decide, is end-to-end flow still a risk? If it is, you have legitimate reason to add an end-to-end test.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think you've satisfied everything, don't do it.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because it goes very much in line with Thursday's keynote that Paul was mentioning, and the heuristics.
Heuristics, yeah.
And I'm getting like I'm being smacked by the truth, because I was a proponent like rules and like these things, but there are so many flexible things, so many contextual things that you need to kind of have a perspective. When you were describing like looking at the pyramid or triangle, as you say, you got me thinking, like looking at the pyramid more from the side that we always see it from the top.
Yeah.
And you have like a better picture of everything that's
So
happening.
there's a guy here, Misha. He did something independently of me, but we basically created, when we talk about the pyramid, he created a model, 3D model, but the bottom of the pyramid is the foundations.
Mm-hmm.
And I started talking the same way. So if you view it as a pyramid needs foundations. Those foundations are the context. That's what it is. And then you build your pyramid on top of a context. And that's why they'll all look different, because the foundations are going to be different.
Do you mind if I run with that?
Yeah, go take it.
That sounds a very good. Like,
Yeah.
No, it makes totally sense, because and made me smile when you said like it's a triangle, because at times I also go through the pyramid. Okay, it has one side for the where do you automate which one. From the performance side, it also has another side. When do you do load tests, and how many do you do smaller? But with the context at the foundation, I'm like, we're building a very nice structure here.
Yeah.
Again, not rules, not like set in stone, or even as pyramids are, but heuristics, guidelines, some things that you draw inspiration from.
And I had a good conversation with Paul and Vincent after their keynote, because I was like, as an industry, I agree, these heuristics are great, but the learning that led to those heuristics is currently not being taught.
Yeah.
So you can hear the heuristic and you can go, that makes sense. But actually, I think now as an industry, we also need to go back in time and bring up some of the reasoning that led to a heuristic. For example, I have one, problems before tools.
Yep. Oh
Very,
yeah.
very
Oh
obvious.
boy.
Sounds like a great heuristic, right?
Uh-huh.
But I've also come into a context before where they've gone, you have to use these tools.
There's no other way. That's the only thing we have.
And that's what led to me doing it. Because if I'm forced to use a tool, I end up shaping my tests to
Yeah.
fit the tool. So now I'm not doing as good the job if I had the freedom to go, what is the problem? What tooling best fits that problem? They're not letting me do that.
And sadly,
So
you don't always have the freedom. It's,
you
it's
don't.
very contextual.
Exactly. Yeah. But we're giving these heuristics out, but we're not giving enough around them now, I think. Like,
Mhm.
if you can't have that heuristic, what
Now
do you
it's
do?
a cone, not a pyramid.
Yeah, yeah. So no, heuristics are great. But one thing you just mentioned, which I'm fascinated about, because you're just giving me an idea, is my models of the system where you go up and down. You could literally. So I talk about interactions as you cross over layers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that's a performance indicator.
Uh-huh.
So the whole thing takes 20 seconds, right? But this bit takes 4. This bit takes 200 milliseconds.
Yeah.
And that you can also start to see that from a performance point of view. So I was chatting with another guy called Ard. Just having a visualization of your system, your architecture, allows you to just think about the system completely differently.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new set of skills to be able to get that model. And that I think we need. That's what I was trying to teach. And I think we need a bit more of this, viewing the system as little systems.
It's super powerful because the testers generally, and I'm not generalizing, or I use generally as a wild term, but we tend to kind of like have this problem. It's a front end automation. We're just finding defects there. What happens behind? I don't know. I don't care. I just throw it around. But the power in understanding the little pieces that connect behind the other big argument, testers knowing development or coding and things like that, is not mandatory, but you understand those little pieces. You can segment better what are you doing on some of those. Again, you can be a very good tester without it, but you get some of the other like big pictures.
Yeah,
That's really really important.
absolutely. There's always been a big distinction that I've made with the technical versus coding. They are a completely different set of skills. For a
Yeah.
long time, we kept saying people needed to be technical, and people meant they needed to know how to code.
Yeah, but technical only is just like saying full stack. Okay, what is that? Like,
True, but like, in terms of, for example, in the training, when they drew the first model, I said, go draw a model. I gave them no hints, no tips. Said, draw a model of the system. Off you go. Because I wanted them to be in the same context I've been in, where I've had the same problem. So there is hints and ways to do it, right? Go look at package.json.
yeah.
Go look at NuGet. See what dependencies are in the system. That's going to open ideas. You could look at the network tab and see what API calls are being made. You could read the documentation. You could look at the folder structure. You could look at the Git commits. There's ways of you could ask developer questions. That's one thing. I love this. I'm gonna look at the camera now. If you're in a training session and the instructor says, "Ask me questions," ask them questions.
Go nuts, please.
I did a role play. I said, "I'm the developer. If you won't ask me questions, ask me questions." But they don't, because it's like, well, you're also the trainer, and like, yeah, I was like, you've been asked to go learn about this system. I built the system. Why don't you ask me?
Abuse this.
It's
I mean, I'm
it's so
here
hard
for you. Just go for it. And it's something that at times, in general, with tutorials and things, any questions, and but I mean that's another topic.
Yeah.
I think, and I got carried away with this, and it's also like a very personal topic as
Yeah.
well. Don't only do load testing. Don't only do the front end. Don't you want to know what is behind? Use observability. Check the system. Monitor. When you were saying, learn what is in the code. When you said draw the model of the system, right away I popped up with something. And when you're starting, like, oh, there's another model that could have done. There's another here. Another. Blah, blah, blah. Damn. And we sometimes don't have, like, the full picture is, don't look down in the branches of the trees,
Yeah.
the tree branches, but also like have the other perspectives, and that's really really difficult. But I feel like we can keep talking hours about
Yeah,
this,
of course
and
you can.
I look forward to because
Yep.
some things have popped up right now
Excellent.
that are super good.
I look forward to it.
I also wanted to talk a little bit about what you have been working around. I know that you have some new things that you have been bringing and collaborating. Would you mind talking a little bit and sharing? I mean, I want you to promote it. And
Yeah, yeah. like I said, there's a lot more going to be coming. So yeah, if you not following me, I encourage you to do that. I'm planning lots of training courses, online courses, this kind of thing. But the biggest one I do at the moment is I do a podcast with my friend Vernon Richards, called the Vernon Richards Show. So if you like listening to me and you also maybe like listening to Vernon, the two of us together, we do a fortnightly podcast. We mostly chat about the testing that we've been doing that week, and that triggers conversations. And yeah, it's a really, really great thing. Doing it with a great friend, and yeah, we're both loving doing it. And we want to turn that into a few more things next year. So I've been building myself back up this year, as I mentioned at the start. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling more confident and ready to do more of that stuff. So yeah, LinkedIn or Blue Sky is probably the best place to keep track of what I'm up to.
Yeah, and especially I wanted to bring up the podcast as well. Uh, Both very much highly respected testers that have loads of experience that you should be listening to what they are doing, because it's amazing when I have heard an episode here and there. I cannot say that I should, but I don't religiously subscribe, and when I catch it that there's something. Uh, but in general, it's and I am bringing this up because everybody listening, you should subscribe, pay attention to, because you never know what are the experiences that both both of them are experiencing,
Yeah.
and how they tackle what something very interesting. And I just we just had a moment with the pyramid a moment ago. You are both nurturing each other's ideas,
Yes.
not attacking, but questioning and pondering, and
Yeah.
should you have done this or that. What rich elements have you have like identified lately that you get out of the podcast?
Oh, so for me, well, there's a few things I would say. So, like, the reason why we did it was when I was having a hard time, me and him started talking regularly, and he was helping me, and we just found that we had a really good vibe and energy together. And like you mentioned, critiquing, it was kind of not, it wasn't never done in like an attacking way.
Constructive feedback.
Yeah, and it became this real natural thing. Then we said, you know what, we should do a podcast, and then we started doing it. So I think there's a few key things I get out of it. I get to talk to a mate every 2 weeks. So not to go into a big mental health topic, people don't talk enough.
Yeah.
And now I know every 2 weeks, as a minimum, I get to chat to Vernon, for an hour or so. Because usually, you do yourself. You have a 10 minutes beforehand, 20 minutes, then you record, then you chat after. So having that time to keep chatting to a mate is amazing. I've been reading the book Fieldstone Method by Jerry Weinberg recently.
Oh.
Fieldstone, it's basically you go around collecting fieldstones, which is essentially just content ideas, little nuggets of information, and he used to write them in a book and store them kind of ready, so that when you need to build a wall or you need to build a piece of content, you have a load of stones already sat there. You go get them. So I get a lot of stones from talking to Vernon. So as we're chatting about things, he's triggering me, I'm triggering him, coming to consensus on a few topics. So yeah, like that reflective time as well is probably the third one. It's that doing a podcast causes you to reflect. And when you reflect, you cement some of that learning that you've had, and you notice some of these field stones, these content ideas. So those are probably the three main things I love doing it. And one important one, we have a little bit of football banter on the podcast. So yeah, we support very rival teams. So we get a little bit of that too.
Yeah, I that's the part where I was like, sadly, I'm very bad Mexican. I don't follow too much soccer or know what's the deal. But when they started the arguing there, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Is this testing still? No, I think I lost the track.
We got a bit of feedback to tone that down a bit, so we did. We keep it in there, but not at the start.
Before in the backstage a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's fun as well because it's something that triggers you and also brings up some of passion.
I would say the one key thing me and Vernon love to do is the podcast needs to be me and Vernon, and me and Vernon have lives. We have challenges. We like football. We have families, and we also love testing. And I don't want it to be a podcast. It's the Vernon and Richard show. It's not Vernon and Richard.
Just testing show.
Yeah, exactly. So we were careful to keep a good balance. But we're not just going to talk about testing because it's meant to be the life in testing, the life in software. I went to a conference recently, and we spoke about that on the podcast, about what it's like going to a conference and public speaking. So we want to kind of keep it about our lives in testing, as well as also
Part of
talking
everything
about
that is
testing.
alive.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
I think I have a feeling that after this conference, Vernon is also here at the conference. I'm sure they have shared a good times together, other than just through the podcast. And just talking about the conference, and that you say that you're catching, how do you call it, the
Field
little
stones,
field
yeah.
stones. Do you have any interesting ones from now that you're gonna bring soon, and you and Vernon are already?
I'm not sure about me and Vernon because the podcast is kind of organic on the go. But I would
Nice.
say the things that are triggering me here at the moment, is the more I've spoken to people about my tutorial, my thoughts on the pyramid, and the stuff like that. I've had these thoughts for a long time, and I've talked about them, but not consistently. And I'm starting to realize that when you produce a piece of content, X number of people see it, and then if you never do it again, that number stays the same. So I think I need to start repeating some of my core observations in the industry and my core learnings myself and the techniques that I've developed. I need to start making sure that they're out there so more people are seeing them. In terms of new ones, I think I think it's more again about around the space of automation and where it's going, especially with not to mention the buzzword, but AI. It's like
We had to wear it. We had to do
yeah,
it.
the Fieldstone. The one that's sticking most in my head at the moment is I think we're in agreement now that AI is here and it is useful, but you have to ask it the right question. And as an industry, I don't think we've spent enough time helping testers ask the right questions. We've taught them tools, but I think we've not focused enough on techniques and understanding. So now we're being asked to use these AI tools. We need to design good prompts, but to do good prompts, you need to know the thinking and the theory behind it. And I think we're going to fall short at the moment. So I think I want to talk more about that too.
That's a very interesting one, because I draw an analogy that when automation tools came, drag and drop automation tools, yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Like, yeah, but if you're not careful, it won't work.
Yep.
You gotta understand the pieces, and I mean, I'm just beating.
Well, the app I built, I asked it to generate me 100 playwright tests, and it did, and they all worked, right? But they were not the tests you would want. But then I went to my own technique and said, I want you to build a playwright test that does exactly these things, logs in with these values, asserts these two things, and it did it for me. But obviously, when I did a component test, I know component libraries, so I told it exactly what components to load, how to do, what kind of render to do, and it built it for me. But when I said just do a component test, it was not good. So
yeah, but it's similar, and I will draw another analogy. The base of the pyramid, the context part,
yep,
you gotta build that base with AI as well,
yep,
like crazy,
yeah,
right?
absolutely,
Be super
yeah,
careful.
absolutely. I think it's there now. If we get it the right things, it's going to be incredibly powerful. And one thing I've actually really loved about AI is I talk a lot about what I call automation in testing as opposed to test automation. Because test automation to most people means automated testing.
Hmm.
Whereas I like to talk about automation in testing as the use of software to support testing. And now that thinking has been hard to get into people. But now that the AI tools are here, it seems now people are more willing to use these tools to solve their testing problems. And my mantra has always been build the tools you need to help you do the type of testing you need to do. And like I think that AI is going to help that progression now. It's like you can build custom tools in your context that help you solve problems. That might help you might test data, might help you do reporting easier, might help the link between a test case management tool and someone else, right? It doesn't matter what it is, but developers haven't been thinking about those things, which is mad, especially when you think about where SDETs came from, the actual term. They were meant to be building all sorts of magical things to make testing easier, yet we got sucked into automated testing. And I think the world of AI is now pulling us out a little bit, and I think that's going to be good for the world of software testing and quality work because there's going to be a lot more tools coming our way. So
And it's also boy, it it's not about the tool, and so many people get like involved, like, yeah, now I have, and we were mentioning earlier,
Yep.
I have this tool, I'm gonna just use it, however, spin it out. But and it's a similar, AI will enable a lot of different perspectives and uses. I very much look forward to what you're going to be producing around this
Thank you.
topic. And as well, I I was going to say rescue, but take that you are going to rework some old content because, of course,
Absolutely.
things have changed, things move, you yourself move, and it's interesting the you from when you created that content long ago and the you that are today and the eyes that you have today is gonna be a mind-blowing new stuff.
Absolutely. There's subtle differences now in my wording that make a real difference that, cement it more to some of my more recent work. So yeah, I think that revisiting and also, it still has real relevance. I think that's the thing you forget because the journey other people are on is, they're at different scales, different points of their careers with their learning of automation. And one of the things that I've found I'm good at from a teaching point of view is sometimes we make seismic shifts that change our thinking, and it's really difficult to reverse them to teach somebody else
Yeah.
how to make the same shift. You end up just teaching them the new way. But actually, if you taught them how you got to it, they can then go on and make their own seismic shifts. And I think I want to do some of that unraveling to go, you know what, this is how I got to this conclusion. And that ties nicely into what we said about heuristics. It's like these heuristics came from people making seismic shifts, but all that knowledge is now not around. And it needs to be around because who's going to do the next seismic shifts? Who's going to create the next heuristics?
And it's very similar to what you were saying. So often we just see the destination, not the path that is behind,
Absolutely.
or the components that are behind the front end of the
Absolutely.
application. I mean, there's so many analogies
Yeah.
here.
Awesome.
But yeah, also, yeah, I got carried away and I just noticed the time. Richard, just to wrap it up, where can people follow up on these new things that you're going to be doing or catch up
Yep.
with?
The best place at the moment is probably LinkedIn. So where you're watching this. So yeah, if you're on LinkedIn, I'm Friendly Tester on LinkedIn, or just search for Richard Bradshaw.
And look for that at the bottom
Yeah,
of the screen.
down there. So that's probably the best place right now. I have got plans to rework my blog, get a newsletter / mailing list kind of set up, but not right now. So right now, LinkedIn, and there's also a LinkedIn page for the Vernon Richard Show as well.
Look for the Vernon Richard Show as well, so that in podcast I forgot, like subscribe and download and leave a comment.
Yep.
5 stars. Are there still
Absolutely.
stars in podcast? I don't
I don't
remember.
know. But
Just
the best
give some
review, the
support,
best review you can give.
listen it, and yeah, Spotify, iTunes, whatever it is now, and reach out to Richard, connect, send a word, stay up to date on what he's gonna be producing, because it's gonna be very interesting. Don't miss it out. And Richard, thank you very much. It has
Thank you
been
very
a
much for
pleasure.
having me. Nice
Yeah,
to chat.
thank
See you
you.
later, everyone.
Take care. Have a good one. And this is probably over. I don't know. Let's see if I still can push another one. But if not, it always happens. But if not, this has been Agile Testing Days reporting from Potsdam, Germany, 2024. It's been a pleasure. I hope to be back in a moment, but I can't promise much. It's been a long day. So stay tuned. If not, I'll see you later. Adios. Gracias, Richard.
Adios.